Good afternoon, everyone. Great to have people on the call already. We'll just give it another minute or two before we get into the heart of this. Just let more people join. That just gives Nick and I a moment or two to get ourselves more organised as well, which is ideal. It's a nice sunny day here in Glasgow, Nick. I have tried to stay off of LinkedIn so far today because it is a bit full for you as an Englishman of what Scotland getting to the World Cup would teach you about whatever story you want to relate it to. So we're not going to do any of that today. You'll be glad to hear, Nick.
That's good to hear.
Um, yeah, we've got a number of people in just now, so let's get the kind of party started as such. And we're pressing record today, so you'll be able to get any follow-up parts to that. And again, if you get people in your team who've signed up and not able to make it, they'll get the recording as well. So no worries about missing out on that stuff. Um, Today, we're going to look at the role of mobile apps in this moment in time in terms of how do we move from simply being, I guess, a booking agent and think more about how do you create the right experience to drive loyalty across your brand. So I'm Ross, I'm the CEO here at Vidatec, and I'm joined by Nick, who's our CTO. And you'll be glad to know Nick is going to do most of the talking today on that front. Um, it doesn't matter if you're coming in today with the fact that you've already got an existing mobile app as part of your estate, or you're thinking about adding a mobile app to your estate, whatever it is, what Nick and I try to do in these sessions is just share some practical hints and tips and give you some frameworks to be able to implement back in the business. Um, we'll make it relevant for both of those kind of journeys in terms of regardless of where you are. But we believe that there's stuff in here that'll add value to you. So thanks for joining us and having the opportunity to talk this through with you. Of course, we're happy to follow up afterwards if there's anything that people would like to kind of talk about in more detail. Um, we've been running a number of these recently, particularly focused on that whole kind of travel, tourism, hospitality, leisure type sector. And it's an area that we're particularly strong in, and I'll talk about that later. So it doesn't really matter if you're joining from a hotel brand, if you're joining about a leisure destination brand, or you're talking about how do you get people engaged as a travel brand, etc. We believe we've got stuff here which is consistent components you would apply across all of those. And essentially, building loyalty goes deeper than simply within your sector. Before I go into the specifics around the mobile app piece, I always like just to kick off with a little bit of information around who Vidatec are. And the starting point for me is always about our purpose. And we've got this purpose which gets us out of bed in the morning, which is about how do we improve people's experience of life and making a positive impact in the world through technology. So for us, this is not about the technology being the forefront of everything. We want the experience to be the forefront of everything. And that includes every touch point you've got, both physical and digital, with customers. So we want to make sure that we're optimizing that digital experience to give the best possible experience to your customer base. Now, okay, some of that might be about efficiencies in terms of how you scale the operations in your business, but it's really about how do we enhance the world through technology and not kind of replace those interactions that we might want. Uh, I share this slide just because we've got some pretty big names here, but we've got some smaller names that you probably don't know. And this is just kind of setting the scene that regardless of what size you are as an organization, there's a digital transformation journey that can support you, and we're happy to do that. You don't need to be a large multinational for Vidatech support, but we're perfectly capable of supporting that thought process at that level, and we've got experience there. Very slight variation on that piece. I just thought we'd throw in some brands that we've worked with to be able to kind of share our credibility in this space before we get into it. And I think, we've helped form some of the first mobile apps for these organizations, having been formed ourselves in 2009, thinking there's something in these mobile app things that people are starting to look at. So we've done a lot of that stuff, and we're probably most famous for Couch to 5K. And I used that as an example in terms of it's supporting people on a journey. And that's what we're trying to do in terms of building that loyalty, building brand loyalty through journeys. Obviously, at this moment in time, AI is giving us a massive opportunity to recreate journeys and look at hyper personalization and things like that in a different way. And I found this quote a couple of weeks ago, and I thought this kind of sums up, I guess, a bit of our mentality around how do we approach the whole digital setup. For us, and I used to love the Expedia advert that was on when we were coming out of COVID lockdowns, which was saying you're not going to be lying in your deathbed thinking about, I wish I'd bought a bigger telly or I wish I'd done this. It was all about, I wish I did these experiences. So I think that's changed a lot of people's mindset around what's important in life. But I thought this, a lot of the interactions that we've started with our customers has been focused on that piece of a transaction, essentially getting that booking. And we're looking at how do we create an experience that, your person that's booking is dreaming about moments. They're dreaming about the experience they're going to get. So how do we get that moment of wow into their hands through a mobile experience as part of that process? So I thought this kind of summed up a little bit. Yeah, there's efficiencies, but let's keep concentrating on how do we drive those special moments for your customers, and that helps build loyalty. Now, the microphones are locked down at this moment in time for the way that we run the webinars, but you can put in the chat, and I'd love to see some chat here from people around the next couple of questions. So, first of all, I'd love to know uh, what's an experience with a kind of digital part that's core that you admire right now? So if you can type away in the chat some of the brands that you maybe associate with a really positive experience. It doesn't necessarily need to be in the same space as we're talking about today. But if there's any other ones there that you've got as admirable ones, then it'd be great to understand who you view in that space. I'll give you a little bit moment to type away and think about that on the screen here. I think, Nick, you've got some coming up, haven't you, in terms of brands that you have kind of identified through this, that some we work with, some we don't work with, that are giving good positive experiences, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. We'll provide some contextual examples and show why we think they work so well across the small screen.
Okay. So there's a Gusto in there, which, yeah, a nice, easy ordering process. They certainly kind of try and get you into that. Uh, I guess it's a bit of a retention policy, but almost like a SaaS type play they've got for the way that they engage you on that subscription. And then the other one I would have for you at this moment in time is if you've got a digital experience, what is the one thing that you would want to change about your current experience? So again, just have a little think about if there's anything there you would want to add around those things, and we can make sure that we come back to kind of answer these as we go. Okay, so we'll get into the heart of it just now, and I think from my perspective, there's a basic equation that we can look at, and from our side, you've got loyalty, but what does that equal? And it's really about that combination of emotion, value, and trust. So I don't think that changes, particularly if you're thinking about a loyalty program in general or about the digital aspects in there. And certainly from our side, we've already spoken about the fact that we want to create emotion in what you do as a digital experience. What does that mean for us? Well, I think when it comes to emotion, how do you create those memorable, personalized moments? We've got a customer that we work with. It was all about the purpose was about the moment of wow in your hands. So how do you do that? And how do you reward not just on that kind of booking transaction or service transaction, but how do you do that based on engagement and start to build up an understanding? We spoke about personalized pieces, and that can be both a positive and a negative piece. You get some elements of personalization that uh, aren't really personalized. You're in a big bucket of people, and it might not really take that data that they know about you as an individual, the holidays you liked, or the services you've ordered in the past. It's just a big sheep dip type approach. But when it's really personalized and great, that can really get that emotional piece in terms of connecting and understanding that the brand knows you. Value, how do you make sure it's a really easy and slick process? How's it not time consuming for you? Things like that. And how do you make sure it kind of feels rewarding when you're going through those things? And then finally, I guess there's a lot of things about trust here, making sure that they're trusting of how you're going to use the data. How do they trust the process is going to be delivering on that promise? How's it reliable, etc., and how you transparent with what you do? So those are some of the key elements that came into our thinking when we start to explore the role of mobile apps in particular. So, Nick, I think from that point, you've got some examples here around kind of what you're seeing out there, the conversations you're having, etc., at this moment in time. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got a couple of examples to share. I'll start with one that we've worked on, so I can tell you a little bit about that. Um, this is so working with part of 2E Group, Crystal Ski Holidays, and the focus is very much an app and experience here, which delivers on servicing your holiday experience whilst you're actually there in resort. So, fantastic client to work with and really exciting project. Lots of different use cases for servicing that holiday experience. For us, it's about how can we create like a one-stop shop that takes the friction out of somebody's holiday while they're in their ski resort. So the app has digital piece maps so people can navigate the actual resort as well, see places of interest. They can check weather updates. They can even see information on queuing and understand, what areas of the resort might be busy at that time. We've got the ability to manage booking and transfer updates through third-party API integrations. And then you've got things like holiday extras, so service bolt-ons like ski equipment hire, resort guide, there's a support chat functionality. I think this is interesting as a project because one of the big things for us was about saying how can we personalize that experience? How can we make that applicable for that end user? So a large part of that was doing a bit of a data audit and saying, okay, what information is available that we can service that in terms of the resort guide? Because then if we can understand what might appeal to a different audience, say, group of young skiers, experienced skiers traveling together versus a family new to ski, we can segment and we can present content in a way that's much more personalized and we can service that experience.
Yeah, it's one of these things, I'm very different as an individual when I'm traveling with the family, when I'm traveling for business versus traveling with my friends for a ski holiday or a golf holiday or whatever. So it's very different, isn't it?
Yeah,
Quite happy to move
exactly
on to the
that.
next one, Nick.
Yes, please. So yeah, Virgin Voyages. I thought this is interesting just in terms of where we're currently going. Obviously, AI, you can't escape an AI soundbite in every piece of news. But clearly, there's a massive potential application of that in terms of the customer booking journey and the customer service journey. So Virgin Voyages, we're seeing what they're doing with what they've termed their AI agent, Email Ellie. That's very much a service that is there to do customer support, but it's also being used to accelerate content production and create very segmented, personalized email marketing campaigns to different audience groups. So it gives them the ability to manage that much more effectively. And also they can streamline their customer booking experience. So obviously AI support chat is able to act as a virtual concierge or travel agent. So it can answer questions about the experience. It can help a customer pick a resort or a cruise. It can identify what's the right experience and tick boxes on their wish list. So that wrapped together around a service experience that's both web and mobile, that really delivers something quite compelling. And I'd say, yeah, lots of potential gains there in terms of efficiency and obviously booking, getting people across the line.
Is there any experience you've got around that, Nick, where the touch point comes in from AI versus handing off to a real life agent, etc.? Because I hope I don't offend them in the call, but certainly I've had an experience with EasyJet where you're kind of stuck in that AI loop and it doesn't really provide the right service level you want. It's great for certain things, but it looked
Yeah.
like it was more of a cost efficiency piece rather than a real service enhancement piece.
Yeah, I think it's very much a balance. I mean, obviously, an AI is going to be able to answer some questions and provide a level of information. I think for us, we having run AI projects in the world, it's very much doing the prompt engineering to make sure that we have got that ability to escalate that support chat, and there is a human in the loop. And for us, any AI implementation needs to include that because there are just going to be some areas where you risk a customer dropping off. So yeah, how can we mitigate those risks and have that effective, easy, frictionless experience?
And I guess, Hilton's been one that's been used as a kind of positive case study for a number of years, not just in terms of the kind of the loyalty aspect of the program, but what you do in terms of that digital room key, etc., ahead of check-in, all that kind of stuff. So that's one that I guess is still kind of held out there a bit, Nick.
Yeah, absolutely. I think just obviously integrations with some of the service experience whilst they're in the hotel, the fact that it's integrated room key, you've got security aspects, but going beyond that, the personalization, it remembers where you stayed. You could have a favorite room. You can pre-order the drinks if you've got a long haul flight or you're coming in from business travel, you haven't got a lot of time. It's very much focused around servicing your immediate needs and making sure that you're not having to go out of the hotel. So again, your opportunity to capture revenue plus build that customer loyalty.
Okay. And I guess right now, I kind of teed up a little bit in terms of AI-driven engagement. You've talked about it a little bit from the Virgin perspective around the different ways the AI can support that connection with the brand and provide the service that you're looking for your customers.
Yeah, I think for this as well, particularly younger demographic, you're actually using
Mm.
GPT as their first point of call in terms of search. So this is what one thing I'd point to in terms of disintermediation. Disintermediation, they're going to potentially bypass your mobile app or your web estate, but your content might well be indexed by ChatGPT. So think of how you can leverage opportunities to direct them to that app experience.
And I guess if they're used to dealing with a chat GPT or Claude or whatever type of interface, how do you do that in a way through your brand that's almost more controlling what they see rather than that being an open-ended thing? It would be one of the key parts. So you're retaining the data of what people are searching for, but also controlling what they're seeing rather than that being in chat GPT or something itself is open source would be a consideration then, Nick, yeah?
Yeah, it's a really interesting thought experiment you can do. So if you take your website content and you plug it into GPT or Claude, and then you ask it questions from a customer perspective, you start to understand how AI is conceptualizing your information and whether you need to do anything to make it a bit more sort of AI ready.
Hmm.
Because absolutely, that's a potential route to market for some of your customer base.
Yeah, and we've done a number of these webinars over the last few months. We have some on AI readiness, so I think they're all available on YouTube if people want to go and find those as a bit of a hints and tips around how to get started with AI or how to make sure that AI is delivering what it's meant to in terms of the projects that you've selected. In terms of trying to create that seamless digital experience, then Nick, what are the kind of examples you've got around that you think stand out at this moment in time?
Yeah, I'd say interestingly, some of these are not necessarily what you would say would be a high-end competitor. So actually, Hub by Premier Inn's are quite a good example, that digital check-in experience. They very much taken account of their value-focused market. It's for, young demographic and also business travelers. But that whole digital check-in experience, everything is managed through that service. It minimizes the impact of having to go and search for information. That user can get immediate access. That guest knows exactly where they stand, and it supports people coming in at all times. So again, a little bit of thinking that's been done in terms of removing friction when somebody actually arrives, gets on site, they're tired. What do they want to do? They want to immediately crash in their room, but they can log in through the system and it immediately takes them through, what is available and how the hotel works, what's available, breakfast, things like that. So I guess in terms of a guest onboarding, it's not a bad experience, despite the fact that's not, a top tier offering.
And then I guess a brand that you connect with a lot when you manage to get away
Yes.
from the young children and stay overnight for work is Citizen M. And again, they've probably been at the forefront of a lot of experience stuff in the hotel space for a number of years without concentrating solely in hotels. What they do when you get there, there's a lot of cool things around that as well, isn't there?
Yeah, I think this one goes a bit further in some ways, even almost further than the Hilton app to some degree, because you've got actual physical interactions. Your phone with the app installed can control the television, you can control the mood lighting, you can raise and lower your blinds, you control everything in the room. It's quite exciting to fun with. It feels like a bit of a gimmick, but actually, in terms of getting that perfect temperature, something that every hotel struggles to manage because it's very subjective to the individual. They've really nailed it. And again, it takes in the content within their app has a gamification elements. They play with concepts like badging for the different system ones you go to, what you might order whilst you're in there. Have you tried this recipe, that item on the food menu or in the bar? And equally, they've got information about the local area, so places of interest, entertainment venues. So it's all in one wrapped up experience. But what's interesting there is the ability they've got to gather customer preferences through that and then be able to target and market more effectively through doing that. So I think it's sort of a two-pronged thing. It's both servicing your stay, but equally it's enabling them to build out their future capabilities and their roadmap for that app, knowing what you do actually like about it.
So a very quick one to touch upon because I spoke about it earlier on in terms of how do you blend the physical and the digital. And I think there's some stuff here where obviously you've got the bands and you can track where people are, in the park here or the resort, for example. on this one. So I don't want to get into too much detail on this, but I think it is just starting to kind of come to the fore as people try and create these different experiences from booking, from services, from potentially kind of physical experiences on site within locations. There's a lot there to try and think about as a full ecosystem to integrate because there's probably a product play that does a lot of these things individually. I think one of the key things in your conversations is how do you bring that together as an ecosystem that's achievable for customers rather than being siloed or fragmented in terms of the approaches to these things. Is there anything you'd want to say about that just now, or does that build more into the coming slides?
I'd say this one is a really good example of service design. So Disney have looked at all your potential touch points with their interactions, their rides, their attractions, and they build a way to link that experience, both in terms of your access to park, your access to venues, interactive fun elements, photos of you on the rides, and just creating that whole wrapped up experience, which when you come away from the resort, you've still got all of that there as a digital footprint and you can take, basically look back on the memories. I think that's a really good, smart way of actually, blending the physical and the digital together to create something that's a bit more memorable.
So I guess you've got a list of opportunities now for people, and we'll give some tips here. Uh,
Yep.
I'm conscious we've got 8 minutes left, so we want to try and get as many of the kind of tips and shares across to people. But is there anything you want to call out on the opportunities in particular?
Yeah, so we talked about obviously making your content AI comprehensible and AI ready. So being able to do a data audit, that's a service we offer. So we can certainly look at how we can make your content AI supportable. I think that comes back into that non-traditional route to market. How are you getting to demographics that probably haven't come through the traditional channels? We talked about those in-room or in-resort or in venue experiences. So integration with the Internet of Things, booking services, creating that seamless experience whilst you're there. AI within the booking experience, again with that handoff to actual human on the other side if needed, but being able to use that to personalize information in real time potentially if you need to target and segment and potentially cross sell or upsell. And then for me, I think wrapping that up, being very conscious, we use a phrase context and content and context. So for us, it's about presenting the right information to the user at the right time. We need to design mobile apps that are easy to use and intuitive, and be very mindful of what that mindset is and what the goal of the user is trying to achieve at that point in their journey.
One of the things that I think is a big play for people at this moment in time, Nick, that not everyone's tapped into is when you think about personalization, don't just think about what you want to communicate in terms of the service or whatever it might be, the offering that's coming through. Think about how you want to communicate that with, and with AI there being able to understand, particularly if you've got that kind of bot type information built in, you're able to understand the individual's personality a bit more and amend that content in line with the personality rather than, I guess, being stuck just with a kind of sheepdip approach of everybody gets the same communication. So that kind of real hyper personalization piece is key and something that I'm making sure we're building into a lot of this stuff that we're doing for customers. In terms of the enablers, then,
Yeah, so just a list here of some of the technical tools that we rely on, not in every project, but a collection of them that can be real enablers in terms of your ability to target, segment audiences, and be able to build effective marketing automation. So, I mean, UXCam, we use that. Those of you in the web world might know Hotjar. UXCam is effectively a tool that works across mobile, gives you detailed click tracking, scroll tracking, and heat maps, lets you do A/B variant testing. So it's a really powerful tool in terms of getting really good analytics on user behavior. Obviously, having got that behavior, we can then target people with push notifications to drive particular campaigns. So SendGrid and Firebase. Obviously, there are other platforms out there, but these enable you to send push notifications at scale and effectively do data streaming on large campaigns if you need to. I think as well for us, there are particular SDKs that are interesting because they can actually do some of this all wrapped up into a single platform. So both CleverTap and Braze have SDKs that integrate with mobile app builds, and they can do the customer segmentation for you. They can also do real-time decisioning in the way that the traditional sort of web players would, but in the mobile space. I touched on obviously traditional CRM tools, so HubSpot, Salesforce, Dynamics. they all have APIs, but we can very easily target those. The benefit of being able to centralize all your data in one place is quite powerful.
Yeah.
And then just finally, social media. So obviously Hootsuite, brilliant tool for automating comms as well, but you partner that with something like Zapier, you've got marketing automations. Your tools don't have to be big enterprise, powerful, expensive solutions. There's a lot you can do at a smaller end of that scale as well.
Yeah, and obviously you've got the likes of Salesforce Marketing Cloud, Adobe, etc. for push notifications, depending on what your architecture is. I guess we're
Yep.
fairly agnostic. It's about what's the right size for you as an organization, Nick, isn't it, for these things?
Exactly that. Obviously, some people will have existing platforms already, so it's about how do we leverage what you already have in place.
I think we'll fly through these fairly quickly, Nick, because I think the majority of people who are on the call today are more through a marketing lens rather than a technology lens. But
Yep.
obviously, there's a blend between the two at this moment in time to achieve what you want. So I think we've got a kind of well-known set of constraints or challenges that we need to work around in terms of legacy systems, how to get employees to adopt, thinking about data, etc., all those things. So we're aware of that, and I think we've got some other things that have come into challenges as well. We've got to think of in terms of data quality, probably when we're working with AI. Data quality is the biggest thing that people come back with as a piece, and AI and data expertise is a real challenge. What we have seen is that there's been some research by Boston Consulting Group that essentially you're twice as likely to succeed on an AI and data project if you bring in external partners to work alongside your internal teams. So there's some things here that we can share through. I think what's really interesting, Nick, just now is like that technology roadmap. And again,
Yep.
thinking about it from if we've got people here who are really strong in a technology lens and people who maybe lean a bit heavily on their in-house team and a bit more focused on the marketing side. Is there anything you would call out here?
I think probably the beginning of that journey is where we start. So it's the assessment of your audience needs and looking at the data and the content that you have in place that service that. Building out the technology roadmap from there on is pretty much a bit more of a straightforward exercise. But the real things that will bring your experience to life is leveraging the materials you've already invested in and looking at how we present those in a mobile context. So this is just a little bit of a roadmap that helps you sort of plan those steps.
Yeah. And obviously, as you say, using that current state, looking at and evaluating that, making sure it's fit for purpose going forwards. You're not grandfathering your data into any of that stuff. You can move
Yep.
as you go. All those things are important areas that we could cover off. Um, Pitfalls. I guess these are three big tips essentially to kick us off into, start small essentially and scale from there. Don't go big bang or perhaps feature flag and test stuff in different areas. Would that be one of the things?
Yeah, I think there's no need for trying to, I say, eat the elephant in one go. Sometimes really effective, small scale pilots can make you realize whether something's going to work and land effectively or not. So I think there's always a tendency to want to be feature rich and have everything included in an app build. But I think testing ideas selectively, even taking like a bit of a selective approach, releasing individual features, seeing how they test, and then iterating off the back of that is often a good play. The data hygiene, again, AI comprehensiveness, can it understand what you're trying to get across in terms of the content, the materials. And then for us, it's about, using modern technology, removing the friction, perhaps removing some of those barriers with legacy systems and unlocking siloed data if it's tied up in an older platform.
Perfect. And then in terms of the ROI piece, so a lot of people will maybe struggle to get sign off without indicating what the ROI is or demonstrating that after a period of time. So is there anything you want to call out here in terms of the ROI piece?
Yeah, I think for us, it's about pulling analytics into a single view. So having a single customer view as much as possible. So where we are using different platforms, we often look at creating dashboards so that we can take a complete view of customer analytics and behavior. And I think the tools very much enable you to do that. That is going to unlock the ROI. Let's not build the feature until we've got data to support it's actually going to deliver on that. And we've tested an idea once it's gone to market and we're checking it's working for us.
We have just hit 1 o'clock, unfortunately, Nick. So we're at the action plan stage. So this is the last kind of key slide. Is
Yeah.
there anything you want to call out here for people? And everybody will get a copy of the slides and the team will follow up with you with a link to the recording as well. But is there anything here you'd want to call out as being the kind of one or two more important ones you would emphasize in the action plan?
Yeah, I think for me, probably the first one, so that personalization piece, keeping it simple and scalable. You don't have to have something very elaborate, but it's often very easy to identify customers based on content engagement. So how can we design an experience around that that does most of the heavy lifting? The other one I'd call out would probably be the legacy systems. So
Hmm.
recognizing where we've got constraints and how we could use APIs or potentially consolidate to another platform that might remove those.
Okay. I think these are really helpful. We have had a couple of questions come in across the webinar. So what we'll do is we'll get a composed response to those as part of the follow-up pack to people who come through. Um, I think, Nick, thank you very much for walking us through some of the conversations you're having with customers just now and the key areas to think about. Thanks to everyone who's been able to join us, and look forward to following up with you guys, and hopefully you can join another of our webinars around a similar topic in the not too distant future. Thank you.
Thank you.